Sarah Martinez never imagined that losing her dream job would lead to the biggest career breakthrough of her life. What started as a devastating betrayal by someone she trusted would ultimately expose a web of corporate corruption and land her in the executive suite of the very company that had rejected her. But the path to justice began in the most unexpected place, her own kitchen, where she discovered her mother-in-law hunched over her laptop at 2 a.m. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. The fluorescent lights in the unemployment office cast harsh shadows across Sarah's face as she stared at the rejection email on her phone screen. It was the 7th one that week. Each message delivered the same crushing blow. Despite her qualifications, despite her impressive portfolio, despite glowing references from her previous position as marketing director at Henderson & Associates, no company seemed interested. "We've decided to move forward with other candidates who better align with our current needs," read the latest email from Pinnacle Solutions, a Fortune 500 consulting firm where she'd been certain she'd land an interview. Sarah had spent 3 days crafting the perfect application, tailoring every word of her cover letter to match their job posting. Her resume showcased 8 years of progressive marketing experience, including a campaign that had generated $2.3 million in new revenue for her last employer. The rejection stung particularly because Pinnacle Solutions had been her top choice. Their reputation for innovation and employee development aligned perfectly with her career goals. She'd researched every member of their leadership team, studied their recent acquisitions, and even reached out to former employees on LinkedIn to understand their company culture better. Sarah closed her phone and rubbed her temples. 6 months ago, she'd been riding high as one of the youngest marketing directors in Henderson & Associates history. Her team had just completed their most successful product launch ever, and she'd received a glowing performance review along with a substantial bonus. Then, the company underwent a merger, and her position was eliminated in the subsequent restructuring. The severance package had seemed generous at first, 3 months of salary and benefits, plus glowing recommendations from her former colleagues. She'd been confident that finding a new role would take a few weeks at most. Companies were always looking for experienced marketing professionals, especially ones with her track record of driving growth and building successful campaigns. But as weeks turned into months, the job search became increasingly frustrating. Applications disappeared into digital black holes. Phone screenings that seemed promising never led to second interviews. Even positions that appeared tailor-made for her background resulted in generic rejection emails, or worse, complete silence. The financial pressure was mounting. Her savings account, once healthy, had dwindled to cover mortgage payments, car insurance, and basic necessities. Her husband, Michael, worked as a software engineer, but his salary alone wasn't enough to maintain their lifestyle in suburban Phoenix. They had already canceled their streaming subscriptions, started shopping at discount grocery stores, and put off needed repairs on their home. The emotional toll was even harder to bear. Sarah had always defined herself through her career achievements. She thrived on solving complex marketing challenges, mentoring junior team members, and seeing her strategies translate into measurable business results. The constant rejection felt like a personal indictment of her worth and capabilities. Michael tried to be supportive, but his mother-in-law, Patricia Hendricks, made no effort to hide her satisfaction with Sarah's unemployment. Patricia had never approved of her son's marriage to Sarah, viewing her as too ambitious and career-focused. She frequently made pointed comments about how real wives prioritized family over professional success, and how Sarah's demanding schedule had prevented her from giving Patricia the grandchildren she deserved. "Maybe this is a sign that you should focus on what really matters," Patricia had suggested during their last family dinner. "Michael makes good money. You could volunteer at the church, take up gardening, maybe finally start thinking about babies." Sarah had bitten her tongue, but the comment rankled. She'd worked too hard to build her career to simply abandon it because of a temporary setback. Her marketing expertise wasn't just a job, it was her passion and her contribution to the world. She'd helped small businesses grow into regional players, launch products that genuinely improved people's lives, and mentored dozens of young professionals who now held leadership roles across the industry. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening in late October. Sarah had spent the entire day customizing applications for 3 different positions: a senior marketing manager role at a tech startup, a brand director position at a healthcare company, and a marketing strategy consultant opportunity at a boutique firm. Each application had taken hours to perfect, incorporating specific keywords from the job postings and highlighting relevant experience from her portfolio. She felt particularly confident about the healthcare company position. The hiring manager, Rebecca Chen, had posted about the role on LinkedIn, mentioning that they were looking for someone with experience in both B2B and B2C marketing, exactly Sarah's background. She'd even found a mutual connection who'd offered to provide an introduction. After submitting the applications, Sarah had treated herself to a glass of wine and an early bedtime. She'd been maintaining a strict routine of early rising, job searching, and networking calls, but the constant stress was exhausting. A good night's sleep would help her tackle tomorrow's tasks with renewed energy. Around 2 a.m., Sarah awoke needing water. The house was dark and quiet, with Michael sleeping soundly beside her. She padded downstairs to the kitchen, planning to grab a glass of water and return to bed quickly. But as she reached the bottom of the stairs, she noticed a faint blue glow coming from the kitchen. Someone was using a computer. Sarah's heart rate quickened. Had someone broken in? She crept closer, staying in the shadows of the hallway. The sight that greeted her in the kitchen made her blood run cold. Patricia was sitting at the kitchen island, hunched over Sarah's open laptop. The screen displayed Sarah's email inbox, and Patricia was methodically clicking through messages. But she wasn't just reading them. She was deleting them. Sarah watched in stunned silence as her mother-in-law selected email after email and moved them to the trash folder. Job alerts from LinkedIn, responses from hiring managers, networking messages from former colleagues, all of it disappearing with clinical efficiency. "What are you doing?" Sarah's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Patricia jumped, nearly knocking over the coffee mug beside the laptop. Her face flushed red, but instead of showing guilt or remorse, her expression hardened into defiance. "I'm helping you see sense," Patricia said, closing the laptop with a sharp snap. "These career obsessions are destroying your marriage. Michael needs a wife who's present, who can give him a family. You've been deleting my emails, my job applications, my networking contacts? You should be thanking me." Patricia stood up, crossing her arms. "I've been watching you waste away, chasing after jobs that don't want you. It's embarrassing. My son deserves better than a wife who gets rejected by every company in town." The words hit Sarah like physical blows. All those months of wondering why her application seemed to vanish into thin air, why promising conversations with recruiters never led anywhere, why companies stopped responding after initial interest. Patricia had been systematically sabotaging her job search from the beginning. "How long?" Sarah demanded. "How long have you been doing this?" Patricia's smile was cold and satisfied. "Since the beginning. Every application, every response, every opportunity. Gone. I have the passwords to all your accounts. Michael gave them to me when you were in the hospital last year for your appendectomy. Said I might need to handle your affairs if something happened." Sarah remembered that week clearly. She'd been worried about missing important email files while recovering from surgery, so she had asked Michael to check her accounts and forward anything urgent. She'd never imagined he would share her passwords with his mother-in-law, or that Patricia would use them for such a devastating betrayal. "You're insane," Sarah whispered, sinking onto one of the kitchen stools. "Do you realize what you've done? I've been blacklisted from companies because they think I'm unprofessional for not responding to their emails. Recruiters have probably marked me as unresponsive or difficult to work with." "Good," Patricia said simply. "Maybe now you'll focus on being a proper wife instead of gallivanting around corporate offices in your expensive suits." The casual cruelty of the statement left Sarah speechless. This woman had systematically destroyed months of work, damaged her professional reputation, and caused her family financial hardship.
All because she disapproved of Sarah's career ambitions? Does Michael know? Sarah asked quietly. Michael doesn't need to know anything, Patricia replied. He's finally starting to see how much happier he is when you're home more. Why would I ruin that by telling him about your latest rejection streak? Sarah stared at her mother-in-law, seeing her clearly for the first time. Patricia wasn't just unsupportive or old-fashioned. She was actively malicious. The thought that this woman had been in their home, using their Wi-Fi, accessing Sarah's most private professional communications for months, made her feel physically sick. "Get out," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the rage building in her chest. "Get out of my house right now." "This is my son's house, too, and I think he'd be very interested to know how his wife talks to his mother." But Sarah was done being intimidated. She pulled out her phone and began scrolling through her deleted email folder, screenshotting the evidence of Patricia's sabotage. Company names, timestamps, deleted responses, it was all there. A digital trail of destruction that had nearly ruined her career. Michael is going to know exactly what kind of person his mother really is. And every company that thinks I've been unprofessional is going to get a very detailed explanation of what actually happened to their communications. Patricia's confident expression faltered for the first time. "You can't prove anything." "I can prove everything," Sarah replied, holding up her phone. "Every deleted email has a timestamp. Every application that mysteriously disappeared has a digital fingerprint. And I'm betting if I dig deeper into my accounts, I'll find evidence of you actually impersonating me in responses to potential employers."
A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. The color drained from Patricia's face, confirming Sarah's suspicion. Her mother-in-law hadn't just been deleting emails, she'd been actively responding to them, probably declining interviews or sending unprofessional messages that would damage Sarah's reputation even further. As Sarah continued gathering evidence, a new email notification appeared on her phone. Despite everything that had happened, despite the late hour, someone was trying to reach her professionally. The sender's name made her pause. Rebecca Chen from Meridian Healthcare Systems, the company where she'd applied just hours earlier. The subject line read, "Urgent, executive position discussion." Sarah opened the email, her hands trembling slightly. What she read would change everything. Sarah's fingers trembled as she read Rebecca Chen's email. The message was brief, but electrifying. "Sarah, I need to speak with you immediately regarding a senior executive position at Meridian Healthcare. This is time-sensitive and confidential. Please call me at 602-555-0147 regardless of the hour. Rebecca Chen, VP of Human Resources." Patricia had retreated upstairs, her footsteps heavy on the wooden steps, but Sarah barely noticed. She stepped outside onto the back patio, where the cool Arizona night air helped clear her head. The phone rang twice before a professional voice answered. Rebecca Chen speaking. "Ms. Chen, this is Sarah Martinez. I just received your email about an executive position." "Sarah, thank you for calling so quickly. I apologize for the unusual hour, but I've been working late trying to resolve a crisis situation. Are you familiar with our Chief Marketing Officer, Jennifer Walsh?" "Of course. Her integrated campaigns for your new patient portal were brilliant." "Were brilliant, yes. Jennifer submitted her resignation 3 hours ago. She's accepted a position as CEO of a startup in San Francisco. Her last day is Friday." Sarah did the math quickly. That was only 4 days away. "I'm calling you because Jennifer specifically recommended you as her potential successor. She said she's been following your work at Henderson and Associates for years. When our CEO asked for her input on internal and external candidates, your name was the first she mentioned."
The words hit Sarah like lightning. Jennifer Walsh knew her work. More than that, she'd recommended her for a C-suite position at one of Arizona's fastest-growing healthcare companies. I'm honored, but I should mention that I've been unemployed for 6 months. My job search hasn't been going well. Sarah, can I be direct with you? I've been in HR for 15 years. I've seen every excuse, every explanation, every sob story. But something about your situation doesn't add up. You have an exceptional reputation, stellar references, and exactly the experience we need. Yet you've been unemployed for 6 months? That suggests either you're incredibly selective about opportunities or something else is happening. Sarah took a deep breath. Something else has been happening. My mother-in-law has been systematically deleting my job applications and communications from potential employers. I discovered her doing it tonight. The silence on the other end stretched long enough that Sarah wondered if the call had dropped. That's either the most creative excuse I've ever heard, or you're telling the truth about something that would explain a lot of unusual patterns I've been seeing in your application history. What kind of patterns? Companies that expressed initial interest in you suddenly reporting that you never responded to follow-up communications, recruiters claiming you declined interviews that you had no knowledge of, HR departments at 3 different firms mentioned that you seemed professional in initial contacts, but then became unresponsive or sent oddly unprofessional follow-up emails. Sarah's stomach dropped. Patricia hadn't just been deleting emails. She'd been impersonating her, actively ruining her reputation across the Phoenix business community. I have proof. Screenshots, timestamps, everything. My mother-in-law has been accessing my accounts for months. Sarah, I need to see you in person. Can you be at our offices at 7 a.m.? I know it's short notice, but this situation is extraordinary in every way. I'll be there.
After hanging up, Sarah sat in the darkness for another hour, processing everything that had happened. Her phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Mom said you two had a disagreement. Everything okay? Sarah stared at the message. How could she explain that his mother had spent months systematically destroying her career? How could she prove it without sounding paranoid or vindictive? Patricia had been clever, deleting emails rather than just reading them, covering her tracks, making it look like companies simply weren't interested. She texted back, "We need to talk tomorrow. It's serious." The next morning, Sarah arrived at Meridian Healthcare's headquarters 30 minutes early. The gleaming glass building stood 12 stories high in downtown Phoenix, its modern architecture reflecting the company's innovative approach to healthcare technology. She'd researched the company extensively while preparing her application, but seeing their offices in person reinforced her excitement about the opportunity. Rebecca Chen met her in the lobby promptly at 7 a.m. She was younger than Sarah had expected, probably early 40s, with sharp eyes and an efficient manner that suggested someone who dealt with complex problems daily. "Let's start with coffee," Rebecca said, leading Sarah to a small conference room on the executive floor. "Then I want to hear everything." Sarah laid out the entire story. Patricia's disapproval of her career, the mysterious lack of responses to job applications, discovering her mother-in-law in the kitchen, the systematic deletion of professional communications. She showed Rebecca the screenshots she'd taken, the timestamps proving months of sabotage. Rebecca examined the evidence carefully, taking notes and asking detailed questions about specific companies and dates. "This explains several conversations I've had with colleagues at other firms. You've been discussed in HR circles, but not in a negative way. People were confused about your apparent unprofessionalism because it contradicted everything they knew about your reputation. How much damage has this done to my career prospects?" "Less than you might think, because the behavior was so inconsistent with your known character. Most HR professionals assumed there was some external factor, family emergency, health issues, something that would explain the communication breakdowns. Very few people suspected deliberate sabotage by a family member. Rebecca leaned forward. Sarah, I'm going to be completely honest with you about this position. Jennifer's departure puts us in a difficult situation. We have 3 major product launches scheduled for the next 6 months, including a revolutionary telemedicine platform that could define our company's future. We need someone who can hit the ground running, manage complex campaigns, and work effectively with our executive team. I understand the challenges. The salary range is $185,000 to $220,000, plus equity and performance bonuses. You'd have a team of 12 direct reports, a budget of $8.5 million annually, and responsibility for all external marketing, brand management, and strategic partnerships. Sarah's previous salary had been $98,000. The opportunity Rebecca was describing represented everything she'd worked toward: senior executive responsibility, substantial resources, and the chance to shape a company's strategic direction. There's one complication, Rebecca continued. Our CEO, David Morrison, is old-fashioned about family dynamics. He's been married to the same woman for 35 years, and he has strong opinions about family loyalty and support systems. If he learns that your own family has been sabotaging your career, he might view that as a red flag about your judgment or your ability to manage personal relations. So I should hide what happened? I'm suggesting you be strategic about how much you reveal and when. Focus the conversation on your qualifications and vision for the role. The family drama can remain private unless it becomes directly relevant. Rebecca stood up. David wants to meet with you in an hour. I've scheduled a full day of interviews, department heads, key team members, even some of our major clients who happen to be in town. If everything goes well, we could have an offer ready by tomorrow. The next several hours passed in a blur of presentations, strategic discussions, and detailed conversations about Meridian's marketing challenges. Sarah found herself energized in a way she hadn't felt since leaving Henderson and Associates. These were her people, analytical, creative, driven professionals who understood the complexities of modern marketing. David Morrison turned out to be an imposing man in his 60s with silver hair and piercing blue eyes. His questions were sharp and direct, focusing on specific examples of Sarah's previous work and her ideas for Meridian's future growth. Jennifer tells me you have innovative ideas about healthcare marketing that could help us reach underserved communities, David said during their one-on-one meeting. Sarah launched into a detailed presentation about community-based marketing strategies she'd developed, including partnerships with local organizations, culturally sensitive campaign development, and data-driven approaches to reaching diverse demographics. She pulled examples from her work at Henderson and Associates, where she'd successfully launched a financial services campaign that increased enrollment among Hispanic families by 340%. Impressive, David said when she finished. Jennifer also mentioned that you've been out of work for several months. In my experience, talented people don't stay unemployed unless there's a reason. What's been the challenge? This was the moment Rebecca had warned her about. Sarah chose her words carefully. I've been dealing with some family circumstances that created complications in my job search. Those issues have been resolved, and I'm now in a position to fully commit to the right opportunity. David studied her for a long moment. Family circumstances can be challenging. The important thing is learning from difficulties and moving forward stronger. By 4 p.m., Sarah had met with everyone on David's list. The consensus seemed overwhelmingly positive. Several department heads had explicitly told Rebecca they hoped Sarah would accept the position. The marketing team seemed particularly excited about her ideas for integrating digital and traditional campaigns. Rebecca walked her back to the lobby. How do you feel about everything you've seen today? This is exactly the kind of role I've been working toward my entire career. The team is impressive, the challenges are exciting, and the company's mission aligns perfectly with my values. Good. David will make his decision tonight. Assuming things go as I expect, we'll have an offer for you tomorrow morning. Sarah drove home in a daze.
The possibility of landing such a significant role felt surreal after months of rejection and sabotage. But as she pulled into her driveway, reality crashed back. She still had to deal with Patricia's betrayal and its impact on her marriage. Michael was waiting in the kitchen, his laptop open, his expression serious. "We need to talk." "Yes, we do. I've been going through your email accounts. Mom gave me the passwords yesterday when she said you two had a fight. She claimed you were hiding something from me, possibly another man." Sarah felt a fresh wave of anger at Patricia's manipulation. But Michael's next words stopped her cold. "I found hundreds of deleted emails. Job applications, responses from companies, networking messages. Mom has been systematically sabotaging your career for months." The relief in Michael's voice was unmistakable. He'd discovered the truth on his own. "I also found emails she sent pretending to be you. Sarah, some of these messages—" He shook his head. "She declined interviews, sent rude responses to recruiters, even told one company that you'd decided to focus on starting a family instead of working." Sarah sank into a chair across from him. "I caught her in the act last night. She admitted everything." "I'm so sorry," Michael said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "I gave her those passwords when you were in the hospital. I never imagined she would use them like this." "Where is she now?" "I told her to pack her things and leave. She's staying at a hotel tonight, and tomorrow she's flying back to Minneapolis. I made it clear that she's not welcome in our home anymore." Sarah squeezed his hand. "This is going to cause problems with your family." "You are my family," Michael said firmly. "What she did was unforgivable. I can't believe I didn't notice the signs. How frustrated you were getting, how none of your applications seemed to be working out. I should have realized something was wrong." "You couldn't have known. I should have trusted you more and her less." Michael opened his laptop. "I've been working on damage control. I found contact information for 17 companies where she impersonated you. I'm drafting emails explaining what happened and apologizing for any confusion." Sarah's phone rang. Rebecca Chen's name appeared on the screen. "I should take this." "Sarah, I have news. David wants to offer you the position. Chief Marketing Officer, $205,000 salary, full benefits package, and a signing bonus to compensate for your months of unemployment. Can you start Monday?" Sarah looked at Michael, who was nodding enthusiastically despite only hearing one side of the conversation. "Yes, I can definitely start Monday."
Excellent. I'll have the contracts ready for your signature tomorrow morning. And Sarah, David was impressed with how you handled yourself today. He said you demonstrated exactly the kind of professionalism and strategic thinking Meridian needs. After hanging up, Sarah sat in stunned silence. In less than 24 hours, her life had completely transformed. The sabotage had been exposed, her marriage was stronger than ever, and she'd landed the executive role of her dreams. But the story wasn't over yet. Patricia's actions had consequences that would ripple far beyond their family, and Sarah was about to discover just how far-reaching those consequences would be. Sarah's first day as Chief Marketing Officer at Meridian Healthcare began at 6:30 a.m. with a strategic planning meeting that would reshape her understanding of corporate politics forever. She arrived early, wanting to make a strong impression, and found the executive conference room already occupied by two people engaged in heated conversation. Through the glass walls, she could see David Morrison speaking intently with a woman in an expensive navy suit. Even from a distance, the woman's body language suggested frustration and barely contained anger. Sarah hesitated, unsure whether to interrupt, when David spotted her and waved her inside. "Sarah, perfect timing. I'd like you to meet Victoria Ashford, our general counsel. Victoria, this is our new CMO." Victoria's handshake was firm, but her smile seemed strained. "Welcome to Meridian, Sarah. David told me impressive things about your background." "Victoria was just briefing me on a legal situation that might affect your first few weeks here," David said, settling into his chair. "We've been dealing with some unusual communication issues with potential business partners. Companies claiming we've been unprofessional in our correspondence, deals falling through due to alleged miscommunications." Sarah felt a chill of recognition. What kind of miscommunications? email responses that don't sound like our usual corporate tone, partnership proposals that were apparently declined rudely, joint venture discussions that ended abruptly with no explanation. It's been happening for about 4 months. "Do you have examples?" Sarah asked, though she was beginning to suspect she already knew the cause. Victoria slid several printed emails across the table. Sarah scanned them quickly, her worst fears confirmed. The writing style, the tone, even specific phrases. They matched exactly what she'd seen in her own deleted email folder the night Patricia was caught. "Has anyone investigated whether your email systems have been compromised?" Sarah asked carefully. "Our IT department ran a full security audit last month. No evidence of external hacking or unauthorized access. They concluded that the emails originated from our legitimate accounts, which makes the situation even more puzzling." Sarah realized she was at a crossroads. She could stay silent and hope the issue resolved itself. Or she could reveal information that might implicate her family in corporate sabotage. But looking at the evidence, she understood that Patricia's actions extended far beyond personal revenge. They were actively damaging Meridian's business relationships. "I may have some insight into this situation," Sarah said slowly, "but it's complicated, and it involves my personal life." David and Victoria exchanged glances. "We're listening," David said. Sarah spent the next 20 minutes explaining Patricia's systematic sabotage, showing them examples of the impersonation emails and connecting the timeline of her own job search problems with Meridian's business communication issues. "Your mother-in-law has been impersonating employees of this company?" Victoria's voice was sharp with legal concern. "It appears so. She had access to my accounts, but if she was targeting Meridian specifically, she must have found a way to access other systems as well." Victoria was already taking notes. "This could constitute identity theft, computer fraud, and possibly corporate espionage, depending on what information she accessed. David, we need to involve law enforcement immediately." "Wait," David said, raising a hand. "Let's think this through carefully. Sarah, you said your husband gave her your passwords when you were hospitalized?" "Yes, but only to my personal accounts. I've never had access to Meridian's systems until today." "But if she was sophisticated enough to impersonate you across multiple companies, she might have found ways to access corporate accounts through social engineering or other methods. I'm calling our cybersecurity team right now." The cybersecurity team, led by an intense young man named Alex Rodriguez, arrived within an hour. Alex's analysis was swift and devastating. Patricia hadn't just accessed personal email accounts, she'd used information gathered from Sarah's communications to research other companies, identify key personnel, and systematically impersonate employees across Phoenix's business community.
She was running what we call a targeted reputation destruction campaign, Alex explained, his laptop displaying a complex network diagram. "Look at this pattern. She identified companies where Sarah had applied, then researched their business partners and competitors. She created fake email accounts that closely mimicked real corporate addresses and used them to send damaging communications. The scope was staggering. Patricia had impersonated not just Sarah, but employees at Henderson and Associates, Pinnacle Solutions, and even Meridian Healthcare. She declined partnership opportunities, sent rude responses to client inquiries, and spread rumors about financial instability at various companies. The Blackstone merger talks that fell through last month, Alex continued. She sent an email pretending to be from our business development team, claiming we were backing out due to concerns about Blackstone's financial stability. Blackstone's CEO was furious and terminated discussions immediately. David's face had gone pale. That deal was worth $45 million to us. "There's more," Alex said grimly. "She's been active on professional networking sites, posting negative reviews of companies using fake profiles and spreading rumors about executive departures and financial troubles. She created an entire ecosystem of false information designed to damage business relationships across the Phoenix market." Victoria was frantically typing on her phone. "I'm getting our litigation team involved. This isn't just personal sabotage, it's commercial terrorism." "How did she access our corporate systems?" David demanded. Alex pulled up another screen. "Social engineering mostly. She called our IT help desk multiple times over the past few months, claiming to be various employees who had forgotten passwords or needed account resets. Our logs show she successfully gained temporary access to at least 6 different employee accounts." "That's impossible. We have strict verification protocols." She was very sophisticated. She researched employees' personal information through social media, learned details about their work history, even their family situation. When she called pretending to be Jennifer Walsh needing a password reset, she knew enough personal details to convince our IT help desk that she was legitimate. Sarah felt sick. Patricia's vendetta against her had metastasized into an attack on an entire business community. Companies had lost deals, professionals had damaged their reputations, and countless hours had been wasted trying to understand communication breakdowns that were actually deliberate sabotage. "There's something else," Alex said. "Based on the timeline and sophistication of these attacks, I don't think she was working alone. The technical knowledge required to spoof email addresses, create convincing fake profiles, and navigate multiple corporate systems suggests she had help." "What kind of help?" Sarah asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Professional help. This looks like the work of someone with significant cybersecurity knowledge, possibly someone in the industry who knew exactly how to exploit corporate communication systems." Victoria's phone buzzed. She answered quickly, her expression growing more serious with each word. "That was the FBI's cybercrime unit. They've been tracking a pattern of corporate communication disruptions across Arizona for the past 6 months. They want to interview you immediately, Sarah. You might be the key to understanding a much larger investigation." Sarah's head was spinning. What had started as a personal attack by her mother-in-law had apparently connected to a federal investigation into corporate cybercrime. The woman who had spent Thanksgiving dinners criticizing Sarah's career choices was potentially part of a criminal network targeting businesses across the state. "Before the FBI gets involved," David said, "I need to understand something. Sarah, given everything that's happened, are you still interested in the CMO position? Because this situation is going to get complicated quickly." Sarah looked around the conference room, at David, whose company had lost millions due to Patricia's sabotage, at Victoria, who was already strategizing legal responses, at Alex, whose cybersecurity expertise had uncovered the full scope of the damage. These people needed her help, not just as a marketing executive, but as someone who understood the perpetrator's motivations and methods. "More than ever," Sarah said firmly. "Patricia targeted me because she wanted to destroy my career. The best response I can give is to build something even bigger than what she tried to take away." David smiled for the first time that morning. "Victoria, draft the employment contract. Alex, I want a full forensic analysis of every system Patricia touched. And Sarah, welcome to Meridian Healthcare. You're going to have quite a first week." As they prepared to leave the conference room, Sarah's phone rang. The caller ID showed a Minneapolis area code, Patricia's hotel.
Don't answer it, Victoria advised. From this point forward, all communication with her should go through our legal team. You're now a witness in a federal investigation. But Sarah was curious about what Patricia might say now that her scheme had been exposed. She answered the call, putting it on speaker so the others could hear. "Sarah, darling, I hope you've had time to think about our conversation last night." Patricia's voice was sickeningly sweet. "I've been talking to Michael, and we both think you owe me an apology for your behavior." "Patricia, you're on speaker with the executive team at Meridian Healthcare," Sarah said calmly. "They're very interested in discussing your recent activities." The silence stretched for nearly 10 seconds before Patricia hung up. Alex was already typing on his laptop. "I'm tracing that call. If she's still in Phoenix, we'll have her location within minutes." But Sarah suspected Patricia was already long gone. Someone sophisticated enough to orchestrate months of corporate sabotage wouldn't stick around once their scheme was exposed. The real question was who had been helping her and what other companies had been targeted in their broader campaign. Victoria's phone buzzed with a text message. She read it quickly, her eyebrows rising. "The FBI wants to meet with you at 3 p.m. today," she told Sarah. "Apparently, you're not the only victim they've been looking for. There are at least 12 other professionals across Arizona who've reported similar patterns of career sabotage, all connected to communication disruptions at major corporations." Sarah's first day as chief marketing officer was turning into something far more significant than a new job. She was about to become the key witness in a case that could expose a network of corporate saboteurs operating across the American Southwest. And at the center of it all was the woman who had spent years criticizing her ambition, never realizing that her own criminal activities would ultimately elevate Sarah to heights she'd never imagined possible.
The irony wasn't lost on her. Patricia had tried to destroy Sarah's career to force her into domestic submission. Instead, she'd created the circumstances that would make Sarah one of the most powerful marketing executives in Phoenix, and potentially help bring down a criminal network that had been damaging businesses throughout the region. As Sarah prepared for her FBI interview, she reflected on how much her life had changed in just 24 hours. Yesterday, she'd been an unemployed marketing professional struggling with mysterious job search failures. Today, she was a Fortune 500 executive and a federal witness whose testimony could reshape corporate cybersecurity practices across the country. The game was just beginning. The FBI field office in downtown Phoenix was nothing like Sarah had imagined from television shows. Agent Maria Santos led her through sterile corridors lined with motivational posters about cybersecurity awareness, past cubicles where agents hunched over multiple computer monitors displaying complex data visualizations. "We've been tracking what we call Operation Disconnect for 8 months, Agent Santos explained, as they settled into a windowless conference room. Systematic corporate communication sabotage targeting middle-level executives across Arizona, Nevada, and New Mexico. Your mother-in-law's activities fit the pattern perfectly." Agent Santos opened a thick file folder containing photographs, email printouts, and network diagrams that looked like spider webs of criminal activity. The sophistication level initially suggested foreign state actors or organized crime, she continued. Professional-grade social engineering, advanced technical capabilities, coordinated attacks across multiple industries. We never suspected it might involve family members targeting their own relatives. Sarah studied the material spread across the table. Each page represented someone's career damaged by the same systematic sabotage she'd experienced. Marketing executives, financial analysts, human resource directors, operations managers, all experiencing mysterious communication failures that derailed their professional advancement. How many victims are we talking about? 47 confirmed cases so far, probably twice that number who haven't reported the incidents because they assumed their job search problems were normal market conditions. Agent Santos pulled out a map of the southwestern United States dotted with red pins. The attacks follow interstate highway corridors, suggesting the perpetrators are mobile. They target specific demographic groups, successful women between ages 28 and 45, usually in middle management roles with strong career trajectories. All women? 91%. The male victims were all married to high-achieving women who appeared to be the real targets. Your situation is unique because the sabotage came from within your own family, but the methods match our broader pattern exactly. Sarah felt a chill as the implications became clear. Patricia hadn't just decided to sabotage her career on a whim. She was part of a larger network specifically targeting professional women across multiple states.
"Tell me about your mother-in-law's background," Agent Santos said, pulling out a recording device. "Education, work history, social connections, especially any involvement with online communities or political organizations." Sarah thought carefully about what she actually knew about Patricia's life in Minneapolis. The woman had always been secretive about her activities, claiming she was too busy with volunteer work to discuss specifics during family visits. She worked as administrative assistant for a law firm until she retired 5 years ago. She's always been active in her church. Very traditional views about women's roles. She frequently complained about modern women being too career-focused instead of prioritizing family. What about her technical skills? The level of cybersecurity knowledge required for these attacks suggests professional training. I always assumed she was computer illiterate. She constantly asked Michael to help her with basic things like email attachments and online banking. Agent Santos made notes. Classic misdirection. We found that many participants in these networks deliberately present themselves as technically incompetent to avoid suspicion. What about her social connections? Any mention of like-minded friends or organizations? Sarah tried to remember conversations from family gatherings. Patricia had always spoken vaguely about ladies from church and volunteer committees, but never provided specific details about her activities. She mentioned attending conferences about traditional family values, but she was always secretive about the details. Said Michael and I wouldn't understand because we were too influenced by liberal culture. Conferences could be recruitment venues. These networks often use ideological conferences and retreats to identify and train new participants. Agent Santos flipped through several pages in her file. We've identified 3 organizations operating in the Minneapolis area that conduct workshops about combating feminist influence in corporate America. The pieces were starting to form a disturbing picture. Patricia's attacks on Sarah weren't just personal jealousy. They were part of an organized effort to remove women from professional leadership roles by systematically destroying their careers. "There's something else you need to know," Agent Santos said. "We arrested Patricia's accomplice 2 hours ago." Sarah's eyes widened. "Who?" "Marcus Webb, a cybersecurity consultant from Scottsdale. He's been providing technical support for the operation, creating fake email accounts, spoofing corporate addresses, accessing secure systems. When we traced the call Patricia made to you this morning, it led directly to his location." Agent Santos pulled out a photograph of a middle-aged man with graying hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He looked like any suburban father, certainly not Sarah's mental image of a cybercriminal. "Marcus has a daughter about your age who works as a financial analyst in Denver. According to our investigation, his own family was targeted by this network 2 years ago. His daughter lost several job opportunities due to communication sabotage. Instead of reporting it to authorities, Marcus decided to join the organization responsible." He went from victim to perpetrator? It's more common than you'd think. These networks recruit people who've been damaged by their activities, offering them a sense of purpose and control. They convince recruits that professional women are destroying traditional family structures and that sabotaging their careers is actually protecting society. Sarah felt nauseated. So Patricia joined this network because she genuinely believed she was doing something righteous? Based on Marcus's initial statements, yes. The organization frames their activities as restoring natural family order and protecting children from feminist indoctrination. They target women in leadership roles because they view professional success as evidence of anti-family attitudes. Agent Santos closed the file folder. "Here's where we need your help. Marcus is willing to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence, but we need corroborating evidence to build cases against the broader network. Your documentation of Patricia's activities is crucial, but we also need you to maintain contact with her." "You want me to talk to Patricia again?" "We want you to encourage her to come back to Phoenix. Tell her you're willing to reconcile, that you understand her concerns about your career, whatever it takes to get her here voluntarily. Once she's in Arizona, we can arrest her and use her testimony to identify other network members." Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Patricia called me crying, saying you're trying to get her arrested. She wants to talk to you." Agent Santos leaned forward. "Perfect timing. Are you willing to make that call?" Sarah looked at the photographs of other victims scattered across the conference table. Women whose careers had been destroyed by the same organization that had targeted her. Thought about the companies that had lost millions in deals due to sabotage communications. The professionals who were probably still struggling with mysterious job search failures. What do I need to say? Agent Santos handed her a script. Keep it simple. You had time to think about her concerns. You realized she was trying to help you prioritize your marriage. You want to discuss finding a better work-life balance. The goal is to make her feel like her sabotage was successful and that you're grateful for her intervention. Sarah dialed Patricia's number, her hands trembling slightly as the phone rang. "Sarah, sweetheart, I'm so glad you called." Patricia's voice was warm with relief. "I've been so worried about the misunderstanding between us." "I've had time to think about what you said, about prioritizing my marriage and family. Maybe you were right that I was too focused on my career." "Oh, darling, I knew you'd come to your senses. These corporate jobs just fill women's heads with unrealistic expectations.
You'll be so much happier focusing on being a good wife to Michael." Sarah forced herself to sound grateful. "I'd like to talk more about this in person. Could you come back to Phoenix? I want to apologize properly for how I reacted the other night." "Of course. I can catch a flight tomorrow morning. We have so much to discuss about your future." "That would be wonderful. I'll pick you up at the airport." After hanging up, Sarah felt like she needed a shower. Playing into Patricia's delusions about career women felt deeply wrong, but Agent Santos seemed pleased with the conversation. "Excellent work. We'll have a surveillance team at the airport and arrest her as soon as she arrives. With both Patricia and Marcus in custody, we can start dismantling the entire network." "What do I need to say now? I just started this new job and now I'm going to be a witness in a federal case?" "Your employer has been very cooperative. David Morrison has agreed to provide whatever support you need for court proceedings. In fact, your testimony could help Meridian recover damages from the network for the business deals they sabotaged." Sarah's phone rang again. This time, it was David Morrison. "Sarah, I wanted to check in on how things went with the FBI. Also, I have some interesting news about the CMO position." "What kind of news?" "The board of directors held an emergency meeting this afternoon. When they learned about the scope of the sabotage network and your role in exposing it, they voted unanimously to fast-track your promotion timeline. Instead of a 6-month probationary period, they want to offer you a permanent contract immediately, with a substantial raise to compensate for the personal risks you're taking by testifying in court." Sarah was speechless. In less than 48 hours, she'd gone from unemployed and sabotaged to landing her dream job and becoming a key witness in a federal investigation that could reshape corporate cybersecurity practices. "There's more," David continued. "We briefed the FBI on the financial damage this network has caused to companies across the Southwest. We're organizing a coalition of affected businesses to pursue civil litigation. If we're successful, the recovery could be in the hundreds of millions of dollars." Agent Santos was nodding approvingly as she listened to Sarah's side of the conversation. "Sarah, you should also know that Jennifer Walsh called me personally to express her support. She said that if she'd known about the sabotage network when she recommended you, she would have been even more enthusiastic about your candidacy. Apparently, her own sister experienced similar career disruptions in Seattle 2 years ago." After hanging up, Sarah sat in stunned silence. Patricia's network had been operating across the entire American West, targeting professional women in multiple cities, causing millions in damages to corporations and derailing countless careers. "When do we start?" she asked. Agent Santos smiled. "Patricia's flight lands tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. After we arrest her, the real work begins. Are you ready to help us shut down one of the most sophisticated corporate sabotage networks in American history?" Sarah nodded, thinking about how much her life had changed since discovering Patricia in her kitchen 2 nights ago. She'd gained not just a dream job, but the opportunity to strike back against an organization that had spent years attacking professional women across the country.
The final confrontation with Patricia would happen in less than 24 hours. And this time, Sarah would be ready. Sarah arrived at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport 30 minutes before Patricia's scheduled landing, her nerves stretched tight, despite the FBI surveillance team positioned throughout Terminal 4. Agent Santos had briefed her extensively on maintaining normal behavior while wearing a wire, but nothing could have prepared her for the surreal experience of waiting to betray her own mother-in-law to federal agents. The plan was elegantly simple. Sarah would greet Patricia normally, drive her to a predetermined restaurant where additional agents waited, and keep her talking until the arrest team moved in. What nobody anticipated was the phone call that would change everything just minutes before Patricia's plane touched down. "Sarah, this is Agent Santos. We have a problem. Patricia's not on that flight." Sarah's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "She never boarded in Minneapolis. We checked with airport security. She purchased the ticket but never passed through the gate. She may have realized this was a setup." Sarah felt exposed and vulnerable standing in the busy terminal, knowing that dozens of travelers walked past completely unaware that they were witnessing a federal operation falling apart in real time. "There's more," Agent Santos continued.
Marcus Webb recanted his confession an hour ago, claims he was coerced into making false statements. His lawyer is arguing that the entire investigation is based on fabricated evidence. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. Without Patricia's arrest and Marcus's testimony, the FBI's case against the broader network would collapse. Months of investigation, dozens of victims, millions in corporate damages, all potentially lost because Patricia had somehow sensed the trap. Agent Santos, there's something I didn't tell you yesterday, Sarah said, moving toward a quieter area near the windows. Patricia called Michael last night after I spoke with her. She might have realized something was wrong from that conversation. What kind of conversation? Michael told me this morning that she asked detailed questions about my new job, about how quickly I'd been hired, about whether I'd mentioned her to anyone at Meridian. He thought he was just being nosy, but now... She was conducting counter-surveillance. Smart. Much smarter than we gave her credit for. Sarah's phone buzzed with an incoming call from an unknown Phoenix number. Agent Santos must have been monitoring her communications because her voice came through the earpiece immediately. Answer it. Keep her talking as long as possible so we can trace the location. Hello? Sarah, darling, I'm afraid I won't be able to make our lunch after all. Something urgent came up that requires my immediate attention back home. Patricia, I was really looking forward to our conversation. I have so much to apologize for. Oh, sweetheart, no apologies necessary. I received some very interesting phone calls yesterday evening from friends who work in corporate security. Apparently, there's been quite a lot of FBI activity related to some made-up story about corporate sabotage networks. Sarah's blood turned cold. Patricia not only knew about the investigation, she had sources feeding her information about federal law enforcement activities. I don't understand what you mean. Of course you don't, dear. You're much too naive for this kind of sophisticated thinking. But I want you to know that I'm very proud of you for landing that executive position. It shows that my intervention in your job search was ultimately successful. The twisted logic was breathtaking. Even knowing that she'd been exposed as a criminal, Patricia was claiming credit for Sarah's success. Your intervention? All those months of rejection taught you humility, didn't they? Made you grateful for opportunities instead of feeling entitled to them. I'm sure that improved attitude is exactly what impressed your new employers. Agent Santos's voice crackled through the earpiece. Keep her talking. We're getting a location fix. Patricia, I'd still like to see you. Maybe I could fly to Minneapolis? That won't be necessary, darling. I'm taking an extended vacation to visit friends in a location with very relaxed extradition policies. But don't worry, I'll stay in touch through various intermediaries. The line went dead. Agent Santos appeared at Sarah's elbow within seconds, her expression grim.
She's gone. The call originated from a burner phone near the Canadian border. By the time local authorities reach that location, she'll be in international waters on a private yacht registered to a shell company. Sarah sank into a nearby chair, overwhelmed by the realization that Patricia had outmaneuvered the entire FBI investigation. So she gets away with everything? Not necessarily. We may have lost Patricia, but we still have Marcus's original confession on record, your documented evidence of the sabotage, and financial trails linking the network to businesses across multiple states. The case isn't over. It's just going to take longer to build. Agent Santos sat down beside her. There's something else you should know. While we were preparing for today's arrest, our forensic accountants discovered something interesting about your mother-in-law's finances. She pulled out a tablet displaying bank records and financial transactions. Patricia has received over $340,000 in payments from various shell companies over the past 3 years. This wasn't just ideological warfare. She was being paid substantial amounts to sabotage specific targets. Sarah stared at the numbers. Someone was paying her to destroy women's careers?
It gets more complex. The money trail leads back to a network of private investment firms that specialize in acquiring distressed companies at below-market prices. Companies that become distressed partly because their key personnel experience mysterious communication failures and lose crucial business deals. The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. Sarah began to understand that she'd uncovered something far more sophisticated than anti-feminist extremism. This was corporate warfare disguised as ideological activism. They were deliberately weakening companies by sabotaging their staff, then buying them cheaply. That's our working theory. Target the marketing executives, operations managers, and business development personnel who drive company growth. Create enough internal chaos and lost deals to depress the company's value, then acquire it through investment firms that appear completely unrelated to the sabotage network. Sarah's phone rang again. This time, it was David Morrison. "Sarah, where are you? We need you back at the office immediately. Something extraordinary has happened." "What kind of extraordinary?" "I just received a call from the CEO of Pinnacle Solutions. You know, the consulting firm that rejected your application last month. Apparently, they've been investigating their own communication problems and discovered evidence of the same sabotage network. They want to hire Meridian as their cybersecurity consultant, and they specifically requested that you lead the engagement." Sarah looked at Agent Santos, who was nodding encouragingly. "There's more," David continued. "3 other companies have called this morning with similar requests. Word is spreading through the business community about your role in exposing this network. Everyone wants Meridian's help investigating their own communication failures." Agent Santos smiled. "Sounds like Patricia's sabotage just generated several $1,000,000 in new business for your company." "David, I'll be there in an hour. This is going to be a very interesting conversation." As Sarah drove back to Meridian's offices, she reflected on the bizarre chain of events that had transformed her from unemployed victim to corporate executive to federal witness to cybersecurity consultant, all within a single week. Her phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Saw the news about the FBI investigation? Are you okay? Very proud of how you're handling everything." Another text appeared from an unknown number. "Ms. Martinez, this is Jennifer Walsh. Heard about your situation from David. Would love to discuss a consulting opportunity with my new company in San Francisco. We need someone with your unique expertise in corporate sabotage detection." By the time Sarah reached Meridian's parking garage, she had received 7 more calls from companies across Arizona requesting cybersecurity consultations, 3 interview requests from business journalists, and an invitation to speak at a cybersecurity conference in Las Vegas. Patricia's attempt to destroy her career had backfired spectacularly. Instead of forcing Sarah into domestic submission, the sabotage had positioned her as one of the Southwest's leading experts in corporate communication security. David Morrison was waiting in the lobby when she arrived, practically vibrating with excitement. "Sarah, I've never seen anything like this. Our phones haven't stopped ringing. Companies are terrified that they've been targeted by this network, and they all want Meridian's help investigating their own communication failures. The board approved an emergency budget increase for a new cybersecurity division, and they want you to head it up." "In addition to my CMO responsibilities?"
They're talking about promoting you to executive vice president with oversight of both marketing and cybersecurity. Sarah, you're about to become one of the youngest EVPs in Arizona's corporate history. Sarah entered the elevator, her mind racing with possibilities. Patricia had intended to destroy her career out of ideological extremism and personal jealousy. Instead, she'd created the circumstances that would make Sarah one of the most powerful and influential executives in the Southwest. The elevator doors opened onto the executive floor, where a crowd of Meridian employees burst into spontaneous applause. Someone had hung a banner reading, "Congratulations, EVP Martinez," across the conference room windows. Agent Santos appeared beside her as the celebration continued. "One more thing, Sarah. we've received intelligence that Patricia's network is planning to target other victims in retaliation for your exposure of their operations. We're going to need you to continue working with us to identify and protect potential targets. Sarah looked around at her new colleagues, thought about the dozens of women whose careers had been systematically destroyed by Patricia's network, and considered the opportunity to prevent other families from experiencing the same betrayal she'd endured. Agent Santos, let's get to work. It's time to shut this network down permanently. As Sarah stepped into her new role as executive vice president, she realized that Patricia's greatest mistake hadn't been underestimating the FBI's investigative capabilities. It had been underestimating Sarah's determination to turn every attack into an opportunity for growth. The war against the sabotage network was just beginning, and Sarah Martinez was no longer just a victim. She was about to become their most dangerous adversary. 6 months after Patricia's escape, Sarah stood before the Senate Judiciary Committee in Washington, D.C., delivering testimony that would reshape federal cybersecurity legislation and cement her reputation as one of America's leading experts in corporate sabotage detection. Senator Williams, the network we uncovered represents a fundamental threat to American economic security, Sarah testified, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. When criminal organizations can systematically destabilize corporations by targeting individual employees, they're attacking the foundation of our free market system. The hearing room was packed with journalists, corporate executives, and cybersecurity professionals from across the country. Sarah's investigation had grown far beyond Patricia's personal vendetta into a comprehensive analysis of how domestic extremist groups were weaponizing technology to damage American businesses. Senator Rebecca Williams, chair of the committee, leaned forward. Ms. Martinez, your report indicates that this network generated over $200 million in illegal profits through strategic corporate acquisitions. Can you explain how they converted sabotage into financial gain? Sarah pulled up a complex diagram on the committee's display screens. The process was elegant in its simplicity, Senator. Step 1, identify high-value companies with strong growth potential. Step 2, target key personnel responsible for business development, marketing, and strategic partnerships. Step 3, systematically sabotage their communications to disrupt deal flow and damage company relationships. Step 4, allow the resulting financial stress to depress the company's valuation. Step 5, acquire the distressed company through shell investment firms at prices 40 to 60% below market value. And your mother-in-law was directly involved in this conspiracy? Patricia Hendricks was a cell leader, responsible for target identification and recruitment in the Minneapolis-Phoenix corridor. Our investigation found that she personally sabotaged at least 89 different professionals across 7 states, generating acquisition opportunities worth approximately $1.2 billion in corporate assets. The numbers still shocked Sarah, even months after discovering them. Patricia hadn't just been a bitter mother-in-law acting out of personal spite. She'd been running a sophisticated criminal enterprise that destroyed lives for profit. Have you maintained any contact with Ms. Hendricks since her disappearance? Yes, Senator. She continues to send me periodic messages through encrypted channels, apparently believing that her sabotage was ultimately beneficial to my career advancement. Sarah pulled out her phone and read from Patricia's most recent communication. Darling, I saw your congressional testimony announcement in the news. I'm so proud that my tough love approach helped you develop the resilience and expertise needed for such important work. Love, Mother Hendricks. The hearing room erupted in murmurs of disbelief. Even after being exposed as a federal fugitive, Patricia continued to take credit for Sarah's success. Ms. Martinez, how has this experience affected your personal life? Thinking about Michael, who had spent months in therapy processing his mother's betrayal, their marriage had emerged stronger, but the psychological impact of discovering that a family member had been systematically destroying Sarah's career would take years to fully heal.
Developed protocols for verifying all professional communications and maintaining independent backup systems for critical business relationships. Senator Williams consulted her notes. Your cybersecurity consulting firm has now helped identify similar sabotage operations in 23 states. What patterns have you observed? The network targets specific demographics with surgical precision, Senator. Successful women in STEM fields, healthcare, finance, and technology are prime targets. The saboteurs often present themselves as concerned family members or friends who believe these women are neglecting traditional roles. But behind the ideological facade, there's always a financial motivation. Someone profits when these women's careers are derailed. Sarah's consulting firm, Martinez Cybersecurity Solutions, had become the premier authority on detecting and preventing career sabotage operations. Fortune 500 companies routinely hired her team to audit their communication systems and train executives to recognize signs of targeted harassment. What recommendations does your firm make to protect against these attacks? 3 primary strategies, Senator. First, implement multi-factor authentication and regular password changes for all professional accounts. Second, establish independent verification protocols for important business communications. Third, maintain awareness that sabotage can come from trusted sources, including family members who may have been recruited by extremist organizations. Senator Williams nodded. The legislation we're considering today would make corporate communication sabotage a federal crime punishable by up to 20 years in prison. Do you support these measures? Absolutely, Senator, but I'd recommend going further. We need federal funding for victim recovery programs, mandatory cybersecurity training for corporate executives, and international cooperation agreements to pursue fugitives like Patricia Hendricks who flee to non-extradition jurisdictions. After the hearing, Sarah was approached by dozens of representatives from companies, government agencies, and academic institutions. Her expertise had become so sought after that she was booked for speaking engagements 6 months in advance. Agent Santos, who had been promoted to head the FBI's corporate sabotage task force, joined Sarah for lunch at a Capitol Hill restaurant. Any updates on Patricia's location? Sarah asked. She's still in the Cayman Islands, apparently running cybersecurity workshops for wealthy expatriates. The irony is incredible. She's teaching people how to protect themselves from the same kind of attacks she used to perpetrate. Has she tried to recruit any new targets? Not that we can detect. Our intelligence suggests she's retired from active operations, possibly due to her age and the increased law enforcement attention. But Marcus Webb has been very cooperative. His testimony helped us identify 47 other network members across 12 states. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from David Morrison. Board meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Merger discussion with Pinnacle Solutions. They want you to head the combined cybersecurity division. The proposed merger would create one of the largest cybersecurity consulting firms in the American Southwest, with Sarah as chief executive officer. At 34 years old, she would become the youngest female CEO of a Fortune 1000 company in Arizona's history. Agent Santos, there's something I've been thinking about. Patricia's messages suggest she genuinely believes she helped my career. Is it possible that she's rationalized her criminal behavior into thinking it was beneficial? Psychological evaluations of other network members show similar patterns. They convince themselves that destroying women's careers is actually helping them discover their true calling as wives and mothers. It's a form of ideological brainwashing that allows them to commit serious crimes while maintaining a sense of moral superiority. Sarah's phone rang with a call from Jennifer Walsh in San Francisco. Sarah, I have news you're going to find interesting. My company just acquired a tech startup founded by 3 women who were sabotaged by Patricia's network 2 years ago. They used their unemployment time to develop a revolutionary communication security platform, and they specifically want to partner with your firm for the launch. The pattern had become familiar. Women whose careers were temporarily derailed by the sabotage network often emerged stronger and more successful than before. The attackers had inadvertently created a generation of highly motivated female entrepreneurs and executives who understood cybersecurity threats from personal experience. Jennifer, count us in and tell them that Patricia Hendricks is going to hate hearing about another successful woman whose career survived her network's attacks. As Sarah walked back toward the Capitol building for an afternoon meeting with the Department of Homeland Security, she reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought her from unemployed victim to congressional witness to emerging CEO. Her phone buzzed with another message from Patricia. "Sweetheart, I heard about your merger opportunity. See how much stronger you've become since learning to overcome adversity? I always knew you had executive potential. XOS."
Sarah showed the message to Agent Santos, who shook her head in amazement. "She's completely delusional about her role in your success." "Maybe that's for the best," Sarah replied. "If Patricia ever realized that her sabotage actually launched my career instead of destroying it, she might be tempted to come back and try to take credit more directly. Would you want her to face justice?" Sarah considered the question carefully. Patricia's network had caused immense damage to hundreds of women and dozens of companies. Justice demanded accountability, but Sarah's own success had grown directly from the challenges Patricia created. "I want her to face consequences for what she did to other victims," Sarah said finally. "But personally, the best revenge is living well. Every promotion I receive, every company I help protect, every woman whose career I help save from sabotage, that's my answer to Patricia's attempt to control my life." As they reached the Homeland Security building, Sarah's phone rang one final time. The caller ID showed Michael's number. "Sarah, I just got off the phone with my therapist. We talked about closure and forgiveness, and I wanted you to know something important." "What's that?" "I'm done feeling guilty about my mother's actions. She made her choices, and you've made yours. I'm incredibly proud of the person you've become and the work you're doing to protect other people from what she did to you." "Michael, that means everything to me. There's more. I've been working with a documentary filmmaker who wants to tell your story, not just the personal drama, but the broader investigation and its impact on corporate cybersecurity practices. Are you interested?" Sarah looked up at the imposing federal building where she was about to brief senior government officials on national cybersecurity policy. 6 months ago, she'd been unemployed and struggling with mysterious job search failures. Today, she was reshaping how America thought about digital security threats. "Let's do it. But I want Patricia to see it when it's finished. I want her to understand exactly what she accomplished with her sabotage, and it wasn't what she intended." As Sarah entered the building for her meeting with Homeland Security officials, she smiled at the final irony of her situation. Patricia had tried to force her into domestic submission by destroying her career prospects. Instead, she'd created the circumstances that launched Sarah into the highest levels of American business and government. The woman who had spent years criticizing her ambition had ultimately become the unwitting architect of her greatest professional triumphs. And somewhere in the Cayman Islands, Patricia Hendricks continued sending congratulatory messages, completely unaware that she had become the perfect example of how spectacular failures could be disguised as helpful interventions. Sarah Martinez had learned the most valuable lesson of her career. Sometimes the people who try hardest to limit your potential end up providing exactly the challenges you need to exceed every expectation they tried to impose. The game was over, and Sarah had won in ways Patricia could never have imagined. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.